Kia ora, this is Andrew from New Zealand, and you're listening to Above Ground Podcasts.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 106, Moth to Flame. That's right, Above Ground Podcast, over the hundreds. Woohoo! Got some really cool stuff coming up, man. Next week, Dr. Holly Schoenberger from the Netherlands will be on. And then in July, we got some awesome guests, Lisa Scott and a local 518 author, Vicky Savini. So it's going to be awesome. Awesome summer. Awesome summer about learning how to love yourself, man, because we're all trying to do that. But first up, let's get to our friends at Close Knit Company, closeknitco.com. Go to CollabX, get yourself an Above Ground Podcast swag, t-shirt, hoodie. Wear a t-shirt during the day at the beach, then you throw the hoodie on at the campfire. That's all. Got it. Dan, Natalie, they got their 4th of July collection, and they got their normal everyday collections for like Jeep lovers and dog lovers and drinkers of wine and tequila, and their Halloween selections are awesome, man. Wait till they start releasing those videos later in the year. closeknitco.com. Check it out. Don't forget you can support the show with PayPal too. Don't forget also, myself, Will Foley has a brand new single coming out, Memoir, June 25th. To all digital retailers and streaming services, so please check it out, June 25th. And this Saturday, June 19th, I will be at the Arsenal City Tavern in Watervliet, New York. If you're in the 518, come on out Saturday night, 7 p.m. Get yourself out of the showers. I think it's supposed to rain this weekend, somebody said, but hey, it's early in the week, so we'll see. But don't forget, you can check us out everywhere, man. YouTube, Facebook, Above Ground Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You can email the show at gmail.com. abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's get on Moth to Flame.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to
Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
No,
What's
you can't.
up, everyone? Everyone listening to the 518. Hello to Nippertown. Oh, that big RCA dog right there. I love him. Love him.
What up,
It's
Nipper?
awesome. What's up, Nipper? How we doing, everybody? Welcome to another episode. We are very happy. We are over the 100 mark now, and wow, dude, it's been 2 years almost.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Wow.
Wow.
I
I know, you're a little grayer and with a little less hair over there.
Well,
I had already lost mine, so you can say what you want. Everybody
it's all
knows
right.
I'm bald.
I'm all right. I look at it as more wisdom.
Yeah,
another year
me
of
too.
wisdom.
The grayer
Yeah.
my beard gets and the longer it gets, I'm going to make sure it's my wisdom.
There
It's my
you go.
wisdom growing, man. This is just how much wisdom I've earned so far.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, this week's episode, I wanted to give a very, very special shout out to somebody on the other side of the globe. Andrew from New Zealand had...
Good day, mate.
Good day, mate. And actually, you heard his voice at the beginning of this episode because he did a little cut in. And I guess did he pose a question about substance abuse?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
He just kind of asked if we could touch on it. So
Okay.
we're going to do our best to touch on it.
Yeah.
Right?
substance abuse has so many different levels of. There's just so many layers to substance abuse.
Yeah. I think as a whole, I looked at it more as addiction.
Okay.
Than just
so
substance
addiction
abuse.
as an overall thing, like addicted to gambling or sex or
exactly
any addiction.
Yeah,
any
technology,
addiction.
sex, work, food,
Okay.
anger, gambling, caffeine, nicotine, drugs and alcohol. They're all basically a temporary negative coping strategy for an underlying problem or illness. That's my opinion.
Well, it's that. I mean, your opinion is half right. I think they are all what an addiction is you having like replacing something with something else.
Correct.
And it's and you're right. It's a negative coping strategy. But it's also, I think, for people who have addiction issues, I think along the lines we've learned from someone else who has addiction issues.
Sure,
I think we see it. I think we pick it up, and
Absolutely.
I think we see it, and we certainly see it. We certainly see it in society. I mean, everybody's like, you can't walk down the street without. Well, of course, you can't walk down the street anyway right now. But everybody's got their phone in their hand. Nobody can live without it. And even like it's been called out in my house a few times. My daughter's called it out. My wife's called it out. I've called it out on her. Like we're all staring at our phones, doing stuff, and we use the excuse that, oh well, I'm using it because I got to post this, or I'm using it for that.
Right.
But you're really, I hear like I get so patterned in so easy that I could run a negative pattern into the ground. That's like I could jump on a negative pattern like a treadmill and just run without even questioning.
With the phone, I guess you could, or whatever. Like some people, I understand that they do have to, for their job or whatever, attend to certain things. It's just that's more of a time management issue, which we can cover that in another episode. It's one of those things. I believe time management and money management, they're things that need to be addressed within the mental health community that are often not addressed.
Absolutely. If you are new to addiction and you need a great book to read, Dr. Gabor Mate, who is a doctor in Canada who has many, many years, 30 plus years in the addiction field, believes that the source of addictions is not to be found in the genes, but it's to be found in the early childhood development and environment. So again, we go back to that
That's
child,
kind of what
man.
I was saying. That's
it's and
you're looking for something that it's basically. I wish I remembered his name. Darn it, I forget his name. I didn't write it down, but he based it on like three things. There's a trigger, there's a behavior, and there's a reward. It's a compulsive, chronic, physiological or psychological need for a habit-forming substance, behavior, or activity having harmful physical, psychological, or social effects, typically causing well-defined symptoms, like anxiety, irritability, tremors, nausea. It's about rewards. It's about rewards. It's about your body and your mind craving, whether it's a substance, a behavior, or most of the time a feeling.
It's actually not a craving to make yourself better. It's a craving to make yourself feel.
Well, what I think it's individual. Whatever they want, whatever you crave is what you're. You know what I mean? I think each. This is my opinion. Again, it's a crave. But it could be a crave for a behavior. It could be a crave for the pursuit of something. It's like an escape. I don't know a better word,
Yeah, I don't think that the addiction becomes an escape though after a while.
Yeah,
I think the escape
then maybe
part of it
just becomes a bad habit.
I think the escape part of it is the first part.
Sure.
At least from my own thought. I actually think the first part is actually witnessing that happening in one way or another. Because if we watch our parents drink, we think it's okay to drink. Okay?
Okay.
And I think if you have in your brain that pattern, that recognition of, well, they do this to feel good, maybe I do this to feel good. And then what happens is if you form a relationship with it that starts out what you think is positive and then becomes negative. But I don't think it's an escape. I think it's an escape at first, but I think that escape soon becomes a prison because you wind up forcing yourself to literally have to feed the addiction all the time, and your life revolves around the addiction.
Right.
So,
which I guess, like I said, a bad habit, you know.
Well, that's more than a habit, dude. An addiction is not just a habit. Like
I'm not saying it
I
isn't
think
just a habit, but I do think
Well-
it's. I would put it in that cat. I would. It's
Oh, I know you wouldn't.
unrealistic or poor assessment of the pros and cons associated with behaviors and substance and behaviors on substances.
Well,
you know?
I think that's a real. I think that's a real unempathetic way to look at it. I think it's like kind of it's almost like a too textbook way to say, well, you have a bad habit, so then you became addicted to it because it was doing something for you, and then it stopped doing something for you, but it's just a bad habit.
Well,
But
I didn't say,
because
but
it's,
you're putting more emotion on it, though. I'm just saying.
because it is emotional. Because if you go back to childhood, where you have suffered trauma,
Right.
and that's what Gabor Mate says, is that you have this scar tissue that has
with
covered over.
and that's with all mental illness. Same thing. It's
Right.
with all
Well,
of
that's
this
right.
stuff.
That's why there's so much comorbidity to it. That's why substance
Right.
abuse issues or addiction issues and mental health issues go
Right.
hand in hand. Because I think that there's always a mental health component to an addiction.
Yeah, that's
It may not start out that way, but I definitely think that there's a mental health component to it at some point.
I always thought it was more of a symptom of an underlying issue, an underlying thing. It's, whether something, you're trying to cover up something or escape from something from childhood. A lot of times people most likely will go, they'll talk about more about like the heavier drugs, or junk food, and it's because those create the biggest dopamine dump for your brain. So those are the more, up front. Those are the ones that are more, I guess, popular, if you want to use that word. Because, like I said, they create the biggest dopamine dump. So you're searching for that feeling, and there it is. It's given to you. It's that reward.
Yeah, I get that. I get it. I think it's a lot. I think there's a lot more to how it manifests and where it goes wrong.
And also, let's not forget that repeated use of drugs or caffeine or any of these kind of I don't know if you want to call them substances or whatever. Any of these behaviors, it raises the threshold on the reward, the pleasure of it. So then you have to either do some more harder drugs, drink more alcohol, or feast on more food. It just
right. Watch more internet porn.
Right. Exactly.
Jerk
So
off
it's just
more. Do whatever. Because these are all forms of addiction that can become addiction.
right.
Because it's about self-soothing, and then self-soothing becomes self-loathing oftentimes with addictions because there's a lot of shame and guilt, and then there's also the other stuff that goes on when you're trying to keep your addiction funded and things like that creates a whole other like ball of wax.
Sure, yeah, the self-doubt. Yeah, absolutely. I think also, just, kind of getting into, we've talked about it before, is like a healthy routine. And, it's some people can go out and have one or two drinks with family or friends over dinner, or maybe a glass of wine, with their significant other. But, if it turns into, a 12-pack because you've had a shitty week, and then, next week it's a 12-pack and, a bottle of Jack, you have to look at that.
Oh yeah. I've had to look at that. I know I've teetered on. I've slipped. I can certainly see myself in that pattern if I let myself get that way, because I've been there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. Like, I'm not trying to shame you or anybody, and I'm just saying, these are things that ultimately, it's the credit card analogy. Ultimately, they're going to have that dopamine dump, and you're going to get a reward and that kind of pleasure feeling, but it has negative effects down the road that will catch up to you.
Yeah, and usually the debt is a lot more. There's a lot of, there's a lot of debt there.
A lot of debt,
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's some, here's a little bit of knowledge. This is, I'm trying to, I can't read where this is from, but healthy ways to take care of your brain. And it's got effects of the brain on substances. Drugs of abuse target the brain's pleasure center. So like the, brain reward, as I was talking about before, dopamine pathways. Nicotine, marijuana, and alcohol use increases levels of neurotransmitters in your brain. Dopamine is released normally when you experience something pleasurable, like good food, your favorite activities, spending time with people you care about, doing something you like. And then substance abuse releases 2 to 10 times more of that dopamine, and the brain is fooled that the drug is needed for survival. So it's basically it's like a false positive to your brain. So the brain doesn't produce more of the dopamine because it senses that you've already have enough, and which you really don't, because it's like a dump of it because of the whatever
the chemical dump of it.
So the neurons in our brains begin to die off as a result of the drugs and alcohol and pleasures like shopping, getting your nails done. Certain things are not pleasurable or fun anymore, so you need to kind of up the ante, so to speak.
Yeah, I could see that. There's a lot of things that aren't pleasurable anymore.
Right, which again, that a lot of that's linked with depression, and then this is going to, any kind of substance abuse, alcohol, drugs can have negative effects on your depression. It's not going to benefit your depression, I should say.
No, it doesn't. It does help. It does help offset it, but then I don't know if it really does help offset anything.
Right.
I mean, I'm not.
It gives
here.
you a blanket for the minute, for the hour or whatever, for the day.
Yeah.
Sure. But we're talking about this in the case of if somebody wants to not only know some of this stuff, but we're looking at it more through the lens of wellness, and trying to kind of focus on the things that are maybe holding you back.
Yeah, an addiction would definitely hold you back. You may not see it. I think that there's certainly, there's tough love needed at certain times, but I don't think addicted people always need tough love.
No, yeah, I'm not saying that. You got to meet people where they're at, in the beginning. I just feel like, again, if you're, if you're seeking help, or if you're looking to seek help, and you're continuously, buying that 12-pack, every 2 nights and going through it, you need you need to recognize that that's not working,
Been there.
And then at the same time, you're going to be like, well, I don't really have money now. Well, you have money to buy a 12-pack, but you don't have money. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's more negative effects associated with this than positive effects. In the way of wellness, if you want to, seek a more healthy lifestyle.
Sure, but you also have to. But getting rid of an addiction, if you have an addiction that is affecting your life, you need to get help for that, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But just getting help for that addiction and then not sorting out the traumas of the past, is going to lead you back into another addiction, because you have to go back. You have to start.
Good point.
You have to start excavating everything, man. You have to start excavating the wrecks and start looking at where did these come from? Why did I develop
You got to
these?
dig. And
What am I not answering, or what am I not opening up to that? Wow, affected me when I was 5. When
And you
I
may
was
not
10, or what you may not even realize
right,
it.
and that's why you need to seek professional treatment. And there are places, obviously we don't know exactly where anyone listening where these places are, but if you try and seek them out, or maybe do a local search in your area for places.
If you're in the 518 and you are struggling with you have an addiction that you're struggling with, we actually run a peer group at the Healing Springs Recovery Center in Saratoga Springs the first and third Thursday of every month. But they have a wonderful staff there, and they are always open.
Wonderful staff.
And you
Absolutely.
shout out to Megan and everybody there, Ben and everybody there. And you can walk in there and say you need help, and they have people there that will help you. And that's what they're there for. And there's other places around. I just happen to be very familiar with that one because we're there quite a bit. But another thing that you can't also do, in the May-June 2021 issue of Psychology Today, there's an article called "Empathy Over Ambush." And a lot of people, we see these intervention shows on TV, and we see where, everybody kind of sneaks this person into this room, and then all of a sudden they're just inundating this person with all their bullshit because you're addicted to something, but it's their problem. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't care about you and say that your problem affects them, but I think that we lack the empathy in those situations. And even they say that these type of ambush things don't necessarily work. It's more of a TV. It's more for TV. Mm-hmm. It's more of that fake reality TV shit where you're like, oh, it's great. We're gonna send them to rehab, or her to rehab, or her wherever. And it's like it's
the stigma that's around it, just like the mental illness. It's the same. The people don't know, so either they assume or they just go, oh, I don't understand addiction, so maybe you can just snap out of it. Same thing. You're depressed. I mean, look at your life. You got this, you got that, but then you could say, well, geez, there's all this air and you can't breathe. You have asthma, but there's all this air. Just breathe, kind of thing.
Right. And if you're going to have a caring conversation, we're all about caring conversations. And in this article, they mention 4 things that you can do to actually help that conversation be a beneficial conversation for the person. And the first thing is to calibrate your expectations. You got to remember that somebody who has addiction issues is struggling with something that's not just an addiction.
Right.
They're struggling with just being in their own skin at any given moment because of something that has happened for them. And I say it that way because, again, if we look at this in a positive, everything happens for you. It doesn't happen to you. So you got to look at it in a positive. But if something's happened to you and that's created a negative feedback loop and that created this trauma in yourself, but the person who's coming to you to talk to you about that needs to take a step back and say, okay, I may not help you, but at least I can offer my ear or offer my assistance to you to help.
Sure.
And then the next thing is also don't do this in the middle of a dinner party, man. Don't do this in the middle of Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Find a really comfortable spot. Even invite the person out for coffee or something as things are, or get them on a Zoom or something where you can be one-to-one, where it's not where they don't feel like they're being judged and they don't feel like they're being sentenced to a something, because
even like a lateral conversation, if you're just driving down the street or something like that, then you just kind of talk about it, and in the process of talking about something, just be like, hey, so how's it going? How are you really doing? Kind of thing, and maybe someone will speak up.
Yeah, and that comes with being flexible.
Right.
You know what I mean? It also, you being flexible also allows you to actually learn something. As I really think if you were trying to help somebody, you would actually want to learn something about that person. So by being flexible and not being so rigid about what you think what they should do, because you don't ever want to put yourself onto somebody by saying you really should do this, because you're not that person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you statements that we talked about before.
Yeah.
You know, I think communication would be a good start as well, and maybe just saying like, I don't know the right things to say, but you know, I feel like you're always in this daze, or I feel like you're slipping because you're not always on the ball as you used to be a month ago, kind of thing. Is there something going on? Is there anything I can?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you started to say that, and then. Because I was waiting for I noticed that you're not with it. Are you okay? Like, I was hoping you were going to get to that part.
Oh, yeah. Have a little faith, Willie.
Ye of little faith and of little stature.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, again, it's similar to, you know, opening up a conversation around mental health.
Right, and certainly draw from your experience, but don't make it about you. And as a peer, sometimes we get stuck in that, making it about us, because it's easy when you can compare, and not even compare, that's the wrong word, I should not say that. Scratch that. When we start talking about when we can really get on the same level with somebody, we almost are trading war stories, and it's like, that's not really going to be beneficial either.
Yeah, it could be, I guess, at first a way to like ease into a conversation.
Well, it's a good way to open the conversation.
Right.
As long as you don't stay on that frequency for very long, man.
Right.
You got to change the channel right after that.
Sure.
Right after you get the opening.
Yeah. You know, and I think there's a willingness on both parties, I think, because again, if I'm starting, you know, with good intention of trying to help or offer my help, you know, and if the person thinks I'm just, you know, being too critical or whatever, then, you know, it could obviously turn out to be a different problem, you know.
It could. You have to cut the other person some slack also,
right.
Because if a person has an addiction, chances are someone has said these things to that person already.
Good point.
Like, how many times have other people tried to perform an intervention, man? And, you know, and people just feel like, you know, it's not your problem. So why are you, you know, badgering me, or like, you can't ambush me? And I get it, because.
And, you know, again, I'm kind of going back and forth comparing it to the mental health side of things. But, you know, the people with some of these addictions, you know, you may not, you know, it's like a depression. You may not rid it. You may not rid your life of it, but you can increase or decrease the symptoms of it, and you know, increase the healthy side of it, and manage this. You know, it could be a lifelong thing. You could be, you know, it could be a lifelong struggle, but it's manageable.
The moral, I think, to the conundrum, if there's an answer to if there's an answer to anything, it really does start with, why are you feeling the way you're feeling?
Sure. And
you need to be able to
have the strength.
You need to be able to have the strength, or have somebody that can help you find the strength to ask those questions. And you have to be honest, man. I mean, like, you can't not face something and expect your life to get better. Just like you can't not face something and your life can get very worse if you keep going down a certain path. And that's not a judgment thing. That's just saying that, you know, looking out for yourself. You have to look at it you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and you may not be strong enough right now. You may not be strong enough to walk away from an addiction right now.
Sure. But that doesn't mean through certain steps and time you can't.
Right. That's right. That doesn't mean you can't walk away from an addiction at any time. You just have to be willing to to really answer why that serves a purpose in your life. Like, what need is that filling that you're not getting fulfilled in some other way? And that's what the realm of the hungry ghosts is. Like, that those hungry ghosts are those needs that aren't being met, that didn't get met when you were a kid, when you didn't get picked up enough, or when you didn't get comforted enough, or when you didn't feel like somebody paid enough attention to you and you had to seek it other places. It's all those things that come back to us, that even some of those things don't even seem like they're bad at the time.
Sure, yeah. I mean, at one point in your life, it might be, it may have been your coping strategy for a while.
Sure. Sure, but those coping strategies, if you don't look at those coping strategies and ask why you have those, can really lead you down a slippery slope. Now, that doesn't mean that good things can't become addictions. You can become addicted to working out because you get into this body dysmorphia thing.
Yep.
Or you think it feels so good and you're afraid that if you miss a day, you're not going to be the same person. Like, anything can be an addiction.
Or just regular your job, your career, like work.
Workaholics. That's what workaholism is an addiction.
Right.
It's an addiction to, it's an avoidance, because that's really what, I mean, in all essence, we try to avoid the unpleasant things.
Absolutely.
So,
for sure.
So, and in turn, what happens is avoiding those unpleasant things come back to bite us in the ass again.
Right.
And it's like, so unless you're willing to open the door, man, to Regan's room and perform an exorcism and get some pea soup all over you, you're not gonna get anywhere. You gotta open it up, man. You gotta spit out that pea soup and let the demons leave.
As Will is spewing this out, his head is rotating around 360.
Damn. It's your mother, Dammy,
why you do this to me? Dammy. So I just want to say, just real quick.
Your mother sucks cocks and hell.
All right, we don't need to do that part of it. Jesus.
It's the best line.
Will had mentioned the word comorbidity.
You can't even say it.
I can't say it. Well, that's the only reason why, because it came up a while ago, and
comorbidity.
And you had brought it up a while ago, and I didn't know what it was, so I just you had mentioned it, and I just wanted to, just for our listeners, comorbidity refers to the fact that two conditions, such as a specific mental health disorder and a substance use disorder, often coexist together. What this means is that in many people with addictions, there is an underlying mental health issue as well. Boy, who said that in the beginning of this episode? While neither condition actually causes the other, they do often exist together. What's more, one condition can exacerbate the symptoms of the other, and that's what I think
they feed off one another.
Right.
It's a direct feed, man.
It is. But people don't realize that. Going to that. I'm just going to call it a negative coping strategy for now, because I don't know what to call it. But.
It's now that you say that, though, do you think that they don't recognize it, or is it that they recognize it and it's just too painful to deal with?
I think there's probably both, for sure. I can't. I honestly, I couldn't answer that, but I think it's different for everybody. But I would say there's both. I think more. I don't know. I would say both. I don't know. I can't really answer that just because I honestly don't know.
Not at all.
No. What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
I think, again, it just depends on the person. Some may not realize it. Some may realize it and be like, it's, this is a nice avoidance strategy for now.
I think that's what happens, and I think a lot of people get stuck in that pattern.
Right. Again, I was just going to say that.
You get stuck in that
pattern, and you do that pattern
20 years goes by, man, and you're...
That's hard to unlearn. It's hard to stop.
And I'm glad you said it that way. It's hard to unlearn.
Absolutely.
Because you've learned these coping strategies.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of what they are. You've learned them. Whether you saw them as a kid and said, oh, that worked for them, but maybe it'll work for me. Or you just learned it on your own, experimenting or whatever.
Right. And that's exactly it, though. But I think that's like my whole thing with mental illness is the same thing. You've learned these things, and you've learned these these ways of thinking. When you do something, you write something down, and in your inner dialogue, you're going, Jesus, why did I write that? I'm so stupid. 25 years of saying that to yourself once or twice a day. Guess what?
You think you're stupid. Yes, you do. And
so it's
and that's where, and again, if the way you've coped with that is by feeding an addiction that you have,
right,
then
you're on that bench press with double the weight.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And actually, as our conversation is starting to come to an end, addiction is really an avoidance that becomes a hindrance. And I don't say that without wanting to say that doesn't mean that you are less than a person.
Absolutely not. No, we're not.
This is not judgmental.
No, we're not here to judge anybody. We're here to just shed some light on it and open up a conversation, and someone would hear this and be like, you know what? Maybe there's some truth to this, what these guys are saying, and I'm going to start looking within.
It really does start within. It comes from within, and that's the best place to start, because that's how we make this whole thing better, is by looking within ourselves, because the only thing that you can change is yourself, and the only thing you can change is your point of view.
Right.
And it's you can't change your reaction to things, and you can't change other people. And wasting your time trying is even more of an uphill battle than. But that doesn't mean you stop. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you stop, and it doesn't mean that you care less. It's just some things, some battles, you have to realize that they're not yours to fight. You have another battle to fight. You have to.
And good call. It's a battle, and it's not. This is a battle that could take a long time. It's not a battle that you can just kind of, grab a few things in a backpack and be like, all right, I'll be back tomorrow.
This is a battle that'll last longer than the Iraq War. So, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's a long fucking time. I mean, you could last your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think one of the things for me is, for as far as mental health, like I look at it as almost from the acceptance side of, I'm never gonna rid myself of the anxiety. Like, it's just not gonna happen. And
you just learn to friend it.
Yeah, and work with it. And I think and then some people are like, oh, I just want to get rid of this anxiety. Like, by doing that, saying that, and trying to do it, you're creating more.
Right, and that's what I said. It happens for you, not to you.
Stephen Pressfield, Resistance.
Resistance, man. The War of Art, dude. The War of Art is like a
Will introduced me to that book, and man,
dude.
That guy is...
Every 6 months I have to listen to it, just because... Although I think I want the version with him reading it, because I really like him when he reads his own books. I'd rather have hear the author read his own books.
Yeah.
Unless their dialect makes it very hard to understand the words, because then it can be
understand that.
For audio it makes it hard when you can't, like, you have to really pay attention to stuff. Not that that's a bad thing, because we really do need to pay more attention, but
yeah.
So if you are dealing with an addiction, okay, please, when you're ready, please try to get help. There are lots of organizations out there. And I will put some organizations in the show notes for you. If you're in the 518, again, like I said, man, Healing Springs Recovery Center in Saratoga.
I was looking for the phone number for that.
And there's other recovery centers here throughout the 518, as there is in the state of New York and the entire country and abroad. And Andrew in New Zealand, I hope that this at least got something to you that you had asked for. I hope that we covered something that you were pining for, man, that you really wanted to hear us say. And if not, man, let us know, because I'm more than happy to learn more.
We're just doing the best that we can.
I think I'm going to be winding up getting my recovery peer support certification also, so I'm going to be taking some classes, I think.
There is a confidential 24-hour toll-free number. Here's Sams's.
Yeah, Sam's is way better.
All right, so the Sams's number is 1-800-662-HELP or 1-800-662-4357. That's a national helpline too, free, confidential, 365 days a year.
Yeah, that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association of America, and they are a great organization, and they provide a ton of resources. I'll put a link in the show notes to their website and their phone number and stuff. So if you are struggling, please get help. We need your light. We need your lumens. And until next time, be well.
Be safe.
Be
above.